Uh, maybe. Typically, when I come on here, am I unmuted, Phil? Okay, again, I apologize for using this particular track on a Sunday. Okay, you're not going to tell me. Okay, thank you, Phil. But I briefly went through a goth phase when I was younger, and this album, which is actually from 1988, is brilliant. I got to admit. Though the guys from Thrill Kill Cult seem like people I would never want to spend any time with. Just awful degenerates. I mean, if you went to a 70s era San Francisco bathhouse and cleaned out the drain, you know, that's Thrill Kill Cult. But they did at least come out with a couple of really good records. And that forgives a lot. It does. And for the life of me, uh, I cannot give up a lot of art that is degenerate art, frankly. But anyway, the reason we're playing that, the reason we played that one, is because the subject today is this trans thrill kill cult. We have to listen to Andy No, and I guess I mean, I've already subjected you to thrill kill cult. So now we'll subject you to not just that, Oh, by the way, I always mean to say the date. Okay, there is sound. February 2nd, 2025. So, yeah, I'll subject you to both Andy No and OAN, One American News. This is the girl on One American News. It's like she looks like she's 16. But anyway, Andy No is reporting on this story that's been out there a little while.
Is there a trans terror cell operating within the U.S.? And can a number of homicides be pinned on this alleged terror cell? Our first guest tonight says soberly yes to both questions. He reports, quote, an elderly Pennsylvania couple was murdered.
He lisped soberly.
In a double homicide in January 2023. An 82-year-old California man was brutally stabbed to death on January 17, 2025. A U.S. Border Patrol officer was shot dead on January 20th, 2025 in Vermont. The cases are all allegedly linked, end quote. And he's surprised there isn't more media attention on the story. Joining us now to discuss his chilling and frankly tragic findings is Andy.
What's surprising about it? There's absolutely nothing surprising about that.
No, an independent journalist and a senior editor for the Post Millennial. He's also the author of Unmasked, Inside Antifa's Radical Plan.
We can barely stand him, but he is the guy who does bring to broader attention these kinds of stories, so I have to give him credit.
To destroy democracy. Andy, thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Right, so there's a lot here that you've uncovered, but first, to kind of get ourselves situated, can you walk us through the basic breakdown of who this main pair is, or I guess I should say was, since one of them is now deceased, and how it culminated into the tragic shooting of the Border Patrol agent that we all heard about on Trump's inauguration day?
So the story has now reached a point where it can no longer be ignored by the mainstream media. We are seeing reporting by AP, San Francisco Chronicle, and others about how the killing of the CBP.
I have to ask, why do you have 3 copies of your book on the nightstand?
The officer was not isolated, allegedly, according to prosecutors. It's linked now to at least 5 other deaths. So the story is there was a trans duo on inauguration day who were allegedly involved in a deadly encounter with a Border Patrol officer in Vermont near the Canadian border. Initially, at first, the focus, at least in conservative media, was that the German national who died in the shootout may have been here on an expired H-1B visa. That's still a bit unclear, but what's
That appears to be the case.
emerged as we've learned more about the female suspect, who's also transgender identifying, who was apprehended alive, is that both of them allegedly have links to a California-based transgender group, some call it a cult, that are allegedly involved in multiple homicides across the U.S., spanning.
I give Andy credit because he'll just use their so-called dead names. And when I'm going out and trying to read about these people and go to Reason Magazine and all these other places, they'll say she and her and they for the, like Teresa Youngblood there, because she's non-binary. You know, but Andy now will just list their real names and give their assumed names in quotation marks. You know, and until everybody just starts ignoring this bullshit, it's just going to stay confusing. You know, we got to, got to clear things up, guys. You got to dead name people.
Back the last few years. And some of these killings are really horrific. The most recent one happened on the 17th of January, involving an 82-year-old man in the Bay Area who was set to testify as a key witness in a murder and attempted murder trial against members of this group. The suspect who was just apprehended and charged over the alleged assassination of this elderly man is the fiance of the female who's apprehended in Vermont. And if you read the court documents, the weapons that were used in this shootout allegedly belong to an individual who is also transgender and is the child of a double homicide that happened in Pennsylvania. So there's been multiple people who have been killed. Several members of the group have died in their attacks on other people as well. So the story is really big. It's not being covered accurately because one big glaring omission in all the headlines, if you read in legacy media, is that nobody's reporting out that all of these individuals are transgender identifying in some way, and their extremist ideology includes aspects of transhumanism and, of course, transgenderism.
As you talk about the Vallejo man in California who was murdered quite recently, he had been attacked by members of this group before, right? I think maybe over rent. He lost his eye. So there you see him with both of his eyes.
Yeah.
The other picture he showed of him, he was missing an eye, and then unfortunately he was then finally killed. But could you talk about that case a little more? Because
yeah, the story's confusing, I understand, and I've been trying to simplify it as best as I can, but
don't laugh,
really,
sweetheart. Don't laugh. This is a gruesome story, you stupid, chunky little girl, you.
Because it involves so many people. God. All of them have aliases. They have fake names. They have so-called dead names. So the legal name is different from what they identify as, and they're all transgender.
We're using the dead names. Thank you.
The case of Curtis Lint, that's the 82-year-old man who was brutally hacked to death and had his throat slit in the Bay Area on the 17th of January. He had survived narrowly another attempt on his life by members of this group in November of 2022. So during the pandemic, for several years, he had rented out his property, a plot of land, to this group, and they lived in box trucks on his property. And according to neighbors and what local media is reporting, was very bizarre in what they were doing. They would walk around wearing gas masks, and they set up solar panels. He said that he was ambushed and attacked by three members of this group, three transgender members, and they impaled him, and he had a firearm for self-defense. And lucky that he did, because he shot back and he killed one of them, a transgender person named Amir Burhanian, also known as Emma, and injured one of the others, and one was uninjured. So the two surviving alleged attackers, assailants, have an upcoming trial in April for attempted murder and other felony crimes. And he was the sole witness to that attack and also the survivor, and he's been killed.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and play this next one for, I hope, a better summary.
How is a murder in Vallejo connected to the killing of a Border Patrol agent in Vermont, an elderly couple in Pennsylvania, and a fringe group in the Bay Area? I've been working with my colleagues at the Chronicle to make it all make sense for you. Let's go back to November 2019. A radical offshoot of the rationalist movement called the Zizians stage a protest against the Center for Applied Rationality while dressed in black robes and Guy Fawkes masks. Ziz, the group leader, who's also known as Jack Lasota, and 3 associates were arrested: Emma Borhanian, Gwen Danielson, and Alexander Leatham. Fast forward almost 2 years, Ziz and the associates file a federal lawsuit against Sonoma County, Westminster Woods, and the 2 deputies. They say they were wrongly arrested, abused, assaulted, and mocked for being transgender. In August of 2022, Ziz allegedly dies in a boating accident in San Francisco Bay, according to an obituary in a Fairbanks, Alaska newspaper. Then in November, Leatham,
which may have been faked. It's probably faked.
Borhanian, and Dow allegedly attacked their Vallejo landlord, Curtis Lind, with one impaling him with a samurai sword through his chest. Lind shoots 2 of his assailants, killing Borhanian. Lind survives the attack, but is left blind in one eye. Leatham and Dow are charged with murder and attempted murder. A few months later, in Chester Heights, Pennsylvania, Richard Zatko and his wife Rita are found shot to death in their home. And Jack Lasota, the namesake of the Zizian movement, was arrested in the state as police investigated that crime, indicating that Ziz was actually very much alive. Remember the federal lawsuit Ziz filed in 2021? That's now dismissed because the plaintiffs are unwilling to pursue further action. In November of last year, Teresa Youngblood and Maximilian Snyder apply for a marriage license.
I love how they live in like this, like weathermen underground, and they apply for marriage licenses. And they're not even like, man, woman. They're just these confusing people, right? But of course, we had to end up in the Northwest at some point.
License in Washington state. It's unclear if they ever got married. The couple went to high school together in Seattle and studied computer science at prestigious universities. We'll get back to them in a second. On January 17th, 2025.
Yeah, so most of these guys seem to be probably autistic, smart enough to have gotten degrees. They're coders, they're guys who might work in AI. There's an AI angle to this. There's severe rationalists. Ziz had a blog. I'll show you part of it. It doesn't make any sense. But they seem to be cursed with this libertarian rationalist, Reason magazine, sort of, trite disease.
Curtis Lind, the Vallejo landlord, is attacked and stabbed yet again. This time, Lind dies from his injuries. We talked to a man who works at an auto body shop across the street from where the crime happened. Here's what he said at the gruesome killing.
El señor, Mr. Curtins, se bajó de su carro y él llegó y lo abrazó por atrás y lo empezó a apuñalar. Algunos muchachos vieron y trataron de ayudarle y el muchacho se regresó nuevamente a seguirlo apuñalando y le cortó el cuello.
Lind was set to provide key testimony in the upcoming trial against his 2019 attackers. On January 20th, Youngblood, the supposed newlywed, and a German national, Felix Bauchholt, also known as Ophelia, are driving near the Vermont-Canada border. They're pulled over for an immigration check. Youngblood allegedly shoots an officer and a shootout ensues. Border agent David Mayland and Bauchholt are killed. Youngblood is arrested and faces 2 weapons charges. Investigators say Youngblood had been in frequent contact with a person of interest in the Vallejo murder case, who had also been detained in the Pennsylvania double homicide. The day after the border shootout, an alert is issued calling Michelle Zatko a person of interest in the killing of border agent Mayland and seeks info on Zatko's purchase of firearms. Michelle is also listed in another law enforcement bulletin as a person of interest in the Pennsylvania double slaying. Michelle's name is listed on legal notices regarding the estates of Richard and Rita. Maximilian Snyder, meanwhile, is arrested by Vallejo police in Reading. He's a suspect in the Lind murder. He's booked in Solano County Jail without bail on murder charges, with prosecutors alleging that he killed Lind to keep him from testifying. Snyder appears in court for an arraignment, which is ultimately pushed back to February 6th because his lawyer is out of the country. We're still trying to connect the dots, and a lot of questions remain, but be sure to follow our reporting at sfchronicle.com.
I don't know why we endured Andy No. We could have just went straight to that one. Yeah, so these guys are interesting because they call themselves the Zizians, and share this tab. Here's Reason Magazine doing a little bit on it. Have you heard about the Zizians, it says? A string of recent killings has been linked to a Vallejo, California death cult that's connected to the rationalist scene. Is that a scene, man? Sex worker slash data scientist Ayala has more. Ayala writes on Twitter. Let's look at that quickly. Okay. Zizian murder cult summary for those out of the loop. Ayala girl. I guess she's a prostitute slash data scientist. It says, I know a bunch of people who are involved or adjacent, including someone who accidentally shot some footage. So these guys, the Zizians, were kind of adjacent to this sort of Reason Magazine sort of crowd. I don't know if it's Reason Magazine exactly, but they got involved with something called the, where is it here? Center for Applied Rationality. The Zizians did, and at first, they started making themselves a nuisance at the Center for Applied Rationality, and were kicked out, and then came back to protest them. So here's Reason. They tell the story of Curtis Lind, the Vallejo landlord who was attacked twice, killed in the second attack by the Zizians, apparently, allegedly. That's the one that 22-year-old Maximilian Snyder was charged with the murder. The killing is linked to 6 other deaths across the country. The suspected killers, the tenants turned delinquents who had been living as a cult, are almost all transgender and part of the Berkeley-based rationalist community, following their leader, Jack LaSoda, Ziz. Some of them are romantically linked to one another. Snyder applied for a marriage license in the state of Washington back in November, along with girlfriend Teresa Youngblood, the suspect in a Vermont-Canadian border shootout that killed a U.S. Border Patrol agent. Back in January 2023, 71-year-old Richard Zajko and his 69-year-old wife Rita, a Pennsylvania couple suspected to be parents of one of the cultists, were murdered. Okay, we've heard all that. And all the way back in February 2018, a woman named Maya Pasek killed herself after being in heavy contact with Ziz and seemingly under his influence. More on that in a second. The purported cult leader, Ziz, had attended workshops at the Center for Applied Rationality, CFAR. In 2019, CFAR reportedly banned both Ziz and another cult member, Gwen, from events. Multiple followers started protesting the organization, even alleging transphobia. At an unclear time, possibly several years prior, in 2016, Ziz started a blog advocating, quote, a ruthlessly enforced altruism towards all living creatures, and to follow the principle that it's never valid to surrender, unquote. And promoting, quote, the punishment of non-good people, particularly those who are not vegans, unquote. Per Aya's write-up, the group's members claim to have invented things like unhemispheric sleep, UHS, quote, a form of sleep where only one half of the brain rests at a time, unquote, per a writer named Apollo Mojave. Entering UHS, quote, entering UHS requires a sleeper to be exhausted, and it also has disorienting effects, so they are not quite themselves. The Zizians exploit this state to convince the unwary that there are actually two people. Ziz believes themselves to be, quote-unquote, double good, and almost without, Ziz believes himself to be double good, and almost without exception tells the people he is recruiting that they are, quote, single good, unquote. By doing this, Ziz establishes a relationship of moral superiority over his followers. Now, I'm ignoring the recent writer's pronouns here to try and straighten this out. But Ziz is a guy who identifies as a girl. Pasek reportedly killed herself after UHS experiences. A February 2023 post from the rationalist blog Less Wrong warned of this cult and possible violence, and many members of the rationalist community have made clear that the Zizians have long been unhinged and disturbed. Ziz preaches a doctrine of radical high-tech veganism that promotes punishing your ideological enemies, concludes Mojave. Quote, he rejects the idea of niceness, community, and civilization. That's often at the core of effective altruism and AI safety movement member concerns, unquote. At various points, different Zizians have faked their own deaths, but the majority appear to be at large. Quote, we still don't know the whereabouts of the people in this story who aren't either dead or in custody, and we sort of expect them to continue doing murders. That's Ziz. It appears to be a guy. Phil the Kill says, add data scientists to the list of professions these freaks have ruined, I'm sure. Yeah, first we kill all the lawyers, and then we move on to the data scientists, yeah. This is Less Wrong. In February 2023, so just about 2 years ago, a community alert about Ziz. So Ziz is known in this rationalist community at this point and has made contacts. Some people in the rationalist communities, it begins, are concerned about risks of physical violence from Ziz and some of her, again it's his, associates. Following discussions with several people, I'm posting here to explain where those concerns come from and recommend some responses. Over the past few years, Ziz has repeatedly called for the deaths of many different classes of people. In August of 2022, Ziz seems to have faked his own death. Ziz's close associate, Gwen Danielson, may have done the same thing in April of 2022. In November of 2022, 3 associates of Ziz, somnolence, they're really big on this sleep thing, somnilogencia, Emma Borhanian, and someone going by the alias Suri Dow, got into a violent conflict with their landlord in Vallejo, California, according to court records. Yeah, we heard about that. That's the guy who was eventually killed. I gather that Pennsylvania police believe, based on a lot of circumstantial evidence and investigation, that one or more of Ziz, Michelle, Jamie, Zako, or Daniel Blank was very plausibly involved in the murder of Jamie's parents in Pennsylvania. Ziz is currently in police custody on charges related to obstructing a Pennsylvania police investigation. Daniel, Jamie, and Gwen are not in custody as far as I know, and I don't know their locations. I don't know of any concrete plans by Ziz or her associates to do anything else violent, but it seemed like a good idea to raise a loud alarm. Okay. And here is the CFAR. What do I have here? Okay, I'm not sharing, am I? You're just looking at my ugly mug right now, aren't you? There you are. Present, share screen. Let's share this one. So they're involved with something called the Center for Applied Rationality. Nearly every major victory this is their mission statement. Nearly every major victory that humanity has experienced over the past 10,000 years, from agriculture to the eradication of smallpox, has come from human intelligence. Nearly every major problem that humanity will face over the next century, from bioengineered weapons to AI to climate change, will also be the result of human intelligence. As our species builds up a greater foundation of knowledge and develops ever more powerful tools, the stakes are only going up. Compare the best and worst that a single human could accomplish with the resources available in the year 1018 to the best and the worst that a single human could accomplish in 1918, or to, okay, on and on and again. Yeah, anyway. CFAR. They do workshops. They're, this whole weird libertarian rationalist movement. And there is a link to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel has funded some of their workshops. So, it's, it gets weirder and weirder. The Thiel Fellowship has thrown some money their way. And if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would build on that. But we don't know. It's always possible that the Zizians are the result of some, some fucking experiments, here. All right, and this is Ziz's blog. And I find it nonsensical myself. So the last thing up here, let's make sure this is, the last thing up here is from November 2019. Intro, Forbidden Knowledge versus Java. The world is vastly different than everyone thinks. Spend 5 months holed up on a boat, quote-unquote, radicalizing, coming to believe, and grant willpower as if you could coordinate on beliefs outside the canon of the one cult that gets to define that word to exclude it, like the church does in the limited domain religion. And you'll see more of this than you can put into words. What on earth is he saying here? Other than reality is a social construct? Is that what he means? Society has strong mechanisms for putting knowledge outside of what everyone can coordinate on. What large groups can coordinate on, small groups coordinate on, or groups coordinate on in desperate, immediate, obvious need, individuals act on with varying degrees of resolve and certainty. This is a spectrum. I don't know, maybe this guy's on Salvia. Here's a video of 2 hackers, one gaining access to, okay. Yeah, see, I read this. I have no idea what's going on here. All right, let's see. No longer available, of course. He has a glossary of terms here. Spectral sight. Spectral sight is a collection of abilities allowing the user to infer the structure of social interactions, institutions, ideology, and the working of people's minds. Named after the demon hunters of the Warcraft universe, who destroy their physical eyes to replace them to become more able to see evil, often has the cost of seeing less beauty. Sadness versus suffering. I want to feel sad to the extent that's true, and I want not to suffer, he says in quotes. People sometimes go to movies and listen to music to feel sadness, but not to suffer. Okay. Suffering is a problematic construct. Core. Core is something in the mind that has infinite energy, contains terminal values you would sacrifice all else for, and then do it again infinity times with no regret. Seems approximately unchanging across lifespan. Figuratively, the deepest frame in the call stack of the mind, capable of aborting any train of thought. Everything that the mind does is because it decided for it to happen. It operates by choosing a narrative frame, module, algorithm, or something like that to run, and is responsible for deciding the strength of subagents. There are actually two of them. Yeah, he's really big on this idea that there are two. He's obsessed with the two hemispheres of the brain. He's obsessed with the idea that there are two identities in each individual, and he views himself as one of the special double good people. And he seems to be in love with this bullshit idea. You know how they used to tell you only use 10% of your brain, which is just really kind of a misunderstanding of how the brain works. It seemed to be this age-old idea of accessing this supposedly unused, vast resource that's in your mind, right? Jonas Savimbi says, billionaires have too much influence in politics, that's for sure. I don't think they have enough. I want more billionaire influence myself. And I want more of the Zizian influence, in fact. So, are transgenders violent? Is the transgender movement going to become more violent now that they're up against the wall, right? Remember, there's something called the Transgender Day of Vengeance, and I totally forgot. I totally forgot to go. I was going to go and look into that. The Transgender Day of Vengeance. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is supposed to be an annual thing, but I found this old story. Trans Day of Vengeance rally in D.C. canceled over credible threat to life after Nashville school shooting. So this is the Post, the good old New York Post. So they have something called threateningly called the Trans Day of Vengeance. Then a school shooter turns up. So they cancel the thing, as you would expect they would. It's not really a good look. But of course, they attribute it to, we were threatened, right? We were going to do this threatening. We were going to threaten you all with vengeance, Oh, no, we don't mean that. We're going to have this threat, non-threat rally, Trans Day of Vengeance. But then one of our own went out and shot a bunch of children. So we're going to cancel it and say we're canceling it, typical lefty fashion, because we feel threatened, because somebody on Fox News did a rage bait segment on it, probably, right? This is from March 2023. A transgender activist group has called off its planned Trans Day of Vengeance rally in Washington, D.C. on Saturday due to a, quote, credible threat to life and safety, unquote. The Trans Radical Activist Network, TRAN, which organized the rally, announced Thursday that the threats were sparked by social media reactions to the name of the previously scheduled demonstration outside U.S. Supreme Court. The April 1st protest was planned weeks before Audrey Hale, who is transgender, gunned down 3 9-year-old students and 3 adults in a private Nashville grammar school. Quote, the safety of our trans community is first priority. This threat is the direct result of the flood of raw hatred directed towards the trans community after the Tennessee shooting, unquote. The coalition said on social media. Individuals who had nothing to do with that heinous act have been subjected to highly serious threats and blamed only because of their gender identity. Anyway. The name of the group's protest sparked outrage following the massacre, including from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Large Marge, Republican from Georgia, who claimed the Trans Day of Vengeance represented the threat of Antifa-driven trans terrorism. Twitter removed thousands of tweets that promoted the event because vengeance does not imply peaceful protest. Groups associated with Tran also briefly lost access to their accounts until they willingly removed the event posters, Our Rights DC said. Despite the rally's misleading name, Trans Day of Vengeance is a meme that has been used by the trans community for years and was never intended to encourage further violence, Tran insisted. Yeah. Anyway. Phil says they really thought they could have a public quote-unquote day of vengeance and get a pass. Yeah, no, and they welcome the violence, you know. I mean, the only reason they canceled it again is because it's a bad look right now. But we're going to get more and more of these crazies, I think, because, you know, they're getting pushed to the wall. Because we are being fed the wokesters, you know, we on the right, who really have, that's just one of our concerns. I mean, wokeism, the trans movement, all this madness, these are just symptoms and weapons of the rot, of the, you know, of the general attack on us. But they're trying to sate your sense, not of vengeance, but of, you know, your legitimate concerns about wokeism and transgender movement and all of it, right? That's what Trump represents now to me. It's just, they're just going to keep feeding you this stuff. I don't reject it, you know. I don't reject them taking DEI out of the government and going after it. But God help us if that's all it takes to get us to quiet down and accept, you know, World War III on behalf of Israel, infinity H-1B visas, and on and on and on. We're just getting started. And I'm hopeful because what I see coming from on the right, especially the youngsters, younger people, is that nobody's, you know, nobody wants to stop there. Nobody thinks, oh, we just need to wring out the excesses of this rotten system to get back on track. Go America. No, things have gone too far. And there are bigger fish to fry, you know. And the source of our problem is not the results of it are not the source. Jane Smorley says, Phil, why do you feel so threatened by 0.2% of the population? We don't. We feel, thank you, Jane. We don't feel. The 0.2 are by themselves are stupid, crazy, and meaningless. Thank you. It's exactly what I'm talking about. And, you know, they need to be corrected. But, yeah, it's the people who are manipulating that 0.2%. It's the people who are very rational, who know that the trans movement is a movement of delusional lunatics and are using them to sicken them on us. Yeah, it's not enough to say, oh, let's just get back to Martin Luther King's dream or some of this other bullshit. No, no, no. No, we don't feel threatened by the 0.2%. We feel threatened by those who encourage it. We feel threatened by those who, and it's not 0.2%, guys. I mean, it's just not. I keep hearing this. And I just run into too many people who are trans. Wait a minute, they're all over. I mean, it's just, you cannot escape them, And I don't have a problem with them anyway. I mean, I've had to work with people who are trans and just, think, well, this poor person isn't mentally ill, but they seem to be okay enough to function. And it's not up to me to regulate society. And I see them as a victim of those same people. Really, the 0.2%, they're the victims of the same people who are trying to victimize us, the majority. So, Jane Smorley. Thank you, Jane. Good to have you here. Yeah, no, it's not 0.2. God, it's got to be way more. I mean, if we're just including everybody who's gender confused, and there are people, I guess, who flirt with the idea, but yeah, again, it's got to be way more than 0.2%. I mean, thinking of my last job, how often no. Of course, I lived in Portland at the time, but yeah, it's it's like somebody was telling me, oh, why are you worried about kids or people getting transgender surgery? Matt Walsh said it was millions, and it turns out it's only tens of thousands. It's only like 30,000. Of course, those numbers this was years ago, and those numbers are probably, way underestimated. But I'm thinking, 30,000 kids going under the knife for mental illness is a fucking outrage. I live in a country that turned the system upside down over one drug addict getting a knee on his neck and dying of an overdose. I can't breathe, right? And that was supposed to be such an outrage that we had to fucking turn the country upside down. And only now are we coming back to try and clean up the mess a little bit. But I'm supposed to think tens of thousands of children undergoing mutilation with the approval of the medical community is, it's nothing. It's just, 0.2%. Man, it's fractional numbers. No, that's a fucking outrage. That's not one child should be having their body altered. And when you think about it, I mean, the trans movement doesn't even try to address this. But if I went and started identifying as a female, call me Denise, right? Come on, Jane, keep talking. Don't go away. I know if you're for real. The trans movement holds that I can have this biologically male body intact with penis and everything, right? And still identify as female and be 100% female. So why the surgery? What's the point of the surgery? Well, it's to make the individual feel more female. But wait a minute, haven't you established that the body has nothing to do with the male-female? In fact, if I'm going under the knife and getting a neo-vagina, a pseudo-vagina, right? Or fake breasts, isn't that conforming to traditional patriarchal ideas about masculine and feminine, right? So the whole thing is this huge contradiction because it's, the real transsexuality is basically, the kind that's always been there are men who get off on dressing as women or identifying as women. And there's only really two types of that. There are guys who may or may not be gay, who get a sexual thrill or get a sexual thrill out of dressing as women, masquerading as women, and they're very effeminate men who think it would be cool to be a woman and just identifies that. They've always been there, tiny, tiny part. That's your point too. And for women, we've always had butch lesbians, who were practically guys and have no interest in being women, and they've probably always been out there, looking like lumberjacks and doing their thing. So, I mean, that's the kernel of this thing. So that's why you have this whole movement that's spawned out of social contagion, has grown to include all these people. And when you talk about 0.2%, what's the percentage of children who are doing this? That's what we should be looking at. What's the percentage of the youngest generation that's falling for this bullshit? When that starts approaching 10%, which it might be, then you've got problems. But, yeah, so it's this huge contradiction. Nobody challenges them. Basically, this gruesome surgery is basically plastic surgery, right? It's like, if you get a facelift, it's to make yourself feel better, right? Look younger. So all these guys are out there getting, they want to look like women. They get their vocal cords shaved and stuff, and they go to classes to try to learn to sound female. All of this weirdness, and nobody stops and questions the trans movement on it, right? It's not supposed to matter. So why are you doing it? And nobody ever says anything. There's no answer to it. Phil says, I agree about the numbers. I'm not placing them above 1%, though, and I have seen them out and about, I think. Well, yeah, I don't know what the numbers are. They stand out, so it will seem like more. You don't notice that you've passed countless non-trans people in a day. Then one comes by and okay, there's a trans person. But I just think the numbers, they sound really low. They say 0.2%. But, the question, why are you afraid of them? Why are you concerned with them? Okay, well, why are they concerned with me? What Phil means when he says 0.2% of the population is why are we reordering society to make you feel better? Because that's all it is. Nobody's going to jail for being transgender. You're getting your feelings hurt when we call you sir instead of madam. You're getting your feelings hurt because you're not passing. And the rest of us are creeped out by you. I mean, you want to reorder society, so that 0.2% cannot be offended by the natural reaction of the majority. Revulsion is natural. I'm sorry, it just is. Revulsion is a natural reaction to this, and revulsion is vastly unappreciated in our time. Of course. I don't know. I guess Jane Smorley's not going to hang out. That's too bad. Really would like to get some diversity in here, right? There's Jane. Jane says, it seems like you're demonizing an entire group because of a tiny cult of crazed killers. Did I demonize them? No. My beef with them remains the same. But here is, you're producing it. So it's 0.2% again. And now we've got the 4 recent school shooters. We've got a trans cult out there, right? We've got a trans day of vengeance. Yeah, I mean, 0.2%. And you guys are punching way above your weight regarding violence. Aren't you, Jane? Come on, Jane, please tell me you're joking. Anti-wokeism is just an excuse to engage in transphobia. No, no, I am transphobic. If you, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'm transphobic. It's not phobic because phobic suggests an irrational fear. I have a very rational concern about the growth in the trans movement because if we get too many trans people, we're fucked. You're already ruining things. Again, 0.2%, and God, you guys are doing your. Hey, Quatch, good to see you. We are talking, I won't use that word because we have a trans person here. Yeah, no, yeah, I'm trans concerned. Yeah, phobic is, phobia, it's such a stupid phrase. It's like denier, you know. You're a Holocaust denier. You're an election denier. That's wordplay to try and make the other guy sound irrational. And it just doesn't fly here, Jane. Jane says, I think people should be addressed as they would prefer. Why is that so hard? I'll be honest with you, Jane. I do that. Like I said, I've worked with trans people, and I wouldn't deliberately misgender. I've misgendered people on accident and apologized. But that's just because I can't help myself. I'm just a nice person, or too much of a, or I'm too much of a, you know what, to stand on principle and be, mean, for lack of a better word. But it's getting, I'm not the first one to say this, obviously, but Jane, it's asking us to participate in your delusion. And it's really a numbers game. And that's why you find yourself saying 0.2% of the population. Would it make a difference, Jane, if it was 2%? Would it make a difference if it was 20% of the population, right? You have to ask yourself when you start talking numbers, right? There's a reason you're talking numbers. There's a reason why you find yourself saying, oh, it's not that common when you're defending something. Because if you're defending something as completely okay, no problem with it, then the numbers don't matter. But if you find yourself saying that, you have to ask yourself, okay, am I acknowledging that if it was 20% of the population that was transgender, it would genuinely be a problem? Because that is the real problem. I think it's nuts no matter, if it's one person out there who has the delusion to think that they're of another gender. It's no less crazy, but it's a huge societal problem because now it's become a greater percentage of the young people, and also it dominates our discourse. I mean, go look at the DNC right now. The Democratic National Committee is trying to elect a chair, right? We should go look at some of that. They're trying to elect a chair, Democratic National Committee chair, going to lead the DNC. And they're talking about, gender representation. They're balancing it. We need males and females, and we need a couple of trans representatives. Again, you say 0.2%, but what are you doing? You're looking for representation. Oh, we should be represented. Well, if you're 0.2% and you're demanding representation the same way minorities demand it, equality of representation, the same way that women demand it, then we should hardly ever see you. You should not be anywhere. I mean, you should be a rarity if it's 0.2%. Jane Smoley says, all this anti-wokeism is a distraction from the much more greater economic problems. I don't think it's simply a distraction, but I agree that it is used as a distraction. But I think it's a symptom. No, there's a greater illness that results in what we call wokeism and other things. And I think it's an assault. It's an assault on the assault on tradition, The assault on religion, the assault on Western civilization, on the idea of civilization. Wokeism is one of his tentacles. Phil says, yeah, the GDP, always focus on GDP. Yeah, no, Jane, I don't go there. It's not economic problems. It's greater problems. But, you know, one of my things since Trump's reelection, yeah, the trans murder cult, we were talking about them, Quatch. They're interesting. You know, I mean, it's still a guy problem. It's funny to me, right? I mean, it's still, you'll find that the trans murder cult is a bunch of guys who identify as women who are into this transhumanist bullshit. They're not very womanly at all, because you would rarely get an all-female trans murder cult. So they're not even succeeding in living as women, you know. We should go watch the DNC for some, I don't know, some good, just to get off this subject and yuck it up, even though I don't typically like to point and sputter at wokeism. You know, I think it's a waste of time. The anti-wokeism is a distraction from his foreign policy, not just economic policy. So Portland Andy is covering protests. Let's see what he's got going on. There we go. Okay. I've got to let him know I'm piggybacking here.
Todos unidos, todos unidos. Ustedes sigan dándole like a la pantalla, tap a la pantalla, sigan compartiendo.
Aquí ya se trata la familia mexicana y latinas. Todos los inmigrantes somos unidos y jamás nos van a separar.
Exactamente. El pueblo.
But I agree with these mofos in a way, though.
What?
I've been saying it for years.
What?
We should make the United States of North America, and we can just take Mexico, we can take Canada, we can finally connect Alaska. Let's take it all.
And include Greenland.
Give me it all.
I think I might be ready for that. I honestly might be ready for that. I don't have an issue with Mexicans, you know. I like Mexicans generally. I mean, I don't know about those Canadians. I mean, we pick up the Canadians, we get all they got all these Indians who are all politically active. We got a whole class of Indians that we'll pick up, that we'll expect to, you know, Sikhs and others who've already established political power in Canada. So honestly, I'd want to run those guys off before I swallowed up Canada. Mexico, we just take Mexico, and then, you know, because Mexicans in Mexico mostly stay where they are. People here, and Mexicans here, and Mexicans in Mexico, so go back and forth, and like they're doing now. We just deal with it, you know. But they're good people, they're Catholic people. I mean, we can, you know, like I said, we could probably assimilate them better than we could those Canadians who are just... So apparently,
I was over there fixing copyrights last night because of you stupid music persons on there. Some YG song made it through. Olvera.
yeah. Well, hello, Art. I'm not a rage farmer. I don't do rage farming. Yeah, that's Fuentes. That's KMG, right? You go watch KMG, and he's going to complain that men don't wear ties and hats anymore. I don't do that. That's not me. I just try to find something interesting, you know. Thrill kill terror cult. That's interesting to me, you know. So no, thank you. Art Bell says bad for the sector to have Trump sandblasting the crud from the leftoids. Yeah, but I find an angle, and the angle obviously is that Trump ringing out the wokeists again. It's a distraction. It's you know, it's what's happening right now, and everybody should be alert to it. And they should be like, okay, no, we welcome just anything that makes sense on its own, but we are not going to be sated by that. We're not going to be satisfied that that you've got DEI programs out of the government. We're not going to be satisfied that you're forcing people to use the proper pronouns and stuff. That's nothing. That's just, like I said, that's just the tip of one of the tentacles of this attack on us. What we need to do ultimately, I'm a sovereignist. That's it. That's my philosophy. And it's the same way that if you're a communist, you hold not just that your country should be communist, but the world should be communist because it's better, it's more just. If you're a capitalist, you hold that your country and all countries should be capitalist. I'm a sovereignist. And I don't care about that bullshit. I just care that countries, nation states should still exist. We should not go as the world has been going. It might be too far gone already to this global order, what they will call the rules-based order or anything else. No, it should be. I believe in sovereign nations, individual sovereign nations with genuine sovereignty. And I think, in that, if Mexico wants to be socialist, Canada wants to be communist, we should live with it. We can trade with them. Our trade can be as open or as closed with any given sovereign nation as we want it to be. I don't care about the market inefficiencies that creates. I don't care that that creates problems for corporations or oligarchs or billionaires, or that creates problems for Israel because it can't leverage the might of the U.S. to get what it wants. I think if you establish worldwide sovereignty, across the globe, we would be a lot better off. We would not be saved. It would not be utopia, but we would be a lot better off than we are. Art Bell says, I think many, even DD himself, said that when Trump lost, it was good for the stability, law and order, refugees, so to say, to wander by and paycheck, guys like that. I don't know what you're saying, Art. It's often the case. I don't know what you're saying. It was good for guys like Ramsey Paul that he lost. Yeah, I mean, maybe Trump winning now puts a lot of people out of business, a lot of rage farmers. I don't know. Quadchangulo says best would be autarky. Yeah, autarky is, it's like nationalism. It's one of these, these bad names that doesn't necessarily need to be an epithet, Art Bell says, Rumble since October or so. You featured. Art Bell says, are guys going to do well like DD and KMG, the storied Torah Talk survivors, escapees of the Luke Ford mind screw network? I don't know. None of us are really thriving. There's no, nobody's going to thrive doing this because, I mean, nobody's going to watch. I do this because I don't know what else to do. But, I mean, I don't have, writing takes real time. This I can just turn on and start talking, and I just, frankly, there's very little preparation. And I just try and pull something out of my ass. That's why I'm always bitching about getting comments from you guys, because if I can bounce off of comments, I can usually keep it going for a couple of hours. But there's no audience for any of us, I mean, look at Luke Ford's probably still out there doing this, probably getting minimal viewers, right? And, as much shit as I talk about Luke, he did some remarkable stuff for a good stretch, right? After he got rid of me, because when I was there, we were just settling into this relaxed little show, which was kind of what I would want to do. I mean, I'm not a rage farmer, and I don't like people shouting at each other. But that's what gets people viewing. And the excitement he generated after he got rid of me and brought in, what's his name? Forget his fucking name, He was like the most popular guy there. Before KMG, and then later with KMG, If he can't get success after what he did in those couple of years after I was basically off the show, though I'd come back once in a while, then I'd give up. Because, I thought there was a stretch there where what he was doing was really compelling. It was a lot of fun. I guess he lost us because he became such a conventional shill. Now I guess he's aspiring to be Richard Hanadia. Fuck, Luke, if you're going to aspire, reach high, dude. Reach a little higher than trying to be Richard Hanadia, Like trying to be Geraldo, Art Bell says, I noticed that KMG loved rage farming articles. He seemed to avoid the super dark stuff like 2 sets of UK people smash wasps, never arrest Muslim perverts. Phil the Kill says, Luke has been milking the plane crash for days now. Yeah. Quatch says, Luke is actually good for as much as I disagree with him. No, he's good. He's really good at this. I turned against him when he just became like a conventional-minded guy, right? Like, oh, stay in your lane. Who the fuck? What kind of slogan is that, right? Stay in your lane? Okay. Why are you even talking, dude? Go find your lane, which is not this, obviously. Nobody's watching. Oh. Phil says, at least grow a Geraldo stash. Yeah. There's just no reason for conventional thinkers. If you're conventional, are you going to lend your voice to the conventional thought, which already carries the day? No. I mean, you look for the angle. Look for what people aren't saying. If you can't find it, then maybe you need to go do something else.
Thank you, Lichgore, for the 10. I appreciate it. Is it because you're a renter? You have a slumlord. You're a renter and you have a slumlord. Is that it?
This is Portland Andy, who is not really political. He just does stuff like this. Just this multi-stream stuff. And I was trying to get this to work a couple of weeks ago. There's a software program you can download that can let you do this, and you can just throw up, several screens, right? Remember, we used to do it during the riots. And I can't get it to work now. I just can't get it to work. So I have to figure out what's going on. Rushton Roner says, isn't the problem Catholics in the tiny hats? Not the Catholics. I would say not Catholics. Art Bell says, saw The Matrix 1999. Keanu has a passport with September 11th as his birth date. Yeah, I saw that. I've seen that. Phil says, why bother watching on my computer or YT if I could just turn on Fox for some opinions? The problem, too, with rage farming is that, what we do as viewers, we go, and I take a lot of this in myself when I'm passively watching YouTube videos or passively scrolling, passively perusing the internet news articles. You go and obviously, you go get your assumptions massaged, right? And you have to try and avoid that as much as you can. But nobody wants to go out, nobody, including myself, wants to go out and just be challenged over and over again. So I don't really have an answer for it, I don't have an answer for the problem of, if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to have a YouTube Rumble channel, whatever, and get viewers. I never understood people, who watched the old Luke Ford show, for instance, didn't understand that he wanted viewers, that I would want viewers to show up. I would want the show to blow up a little bit. Of course, I've had people tell me, oh, you don't really want the show to get bigger, do you? I thought, yes, of course I do. Of course I do. I might do it at this level, but I would love nothing more than to have actual viewers, And people they start to think, that you're supposed to sit there and maintain a little tiny club, right? It's like you get your favorite band. They play in a little club, and you go stand right in front of them and hear them, right? You don't want them to go start playing arenas, right? And then you have to pay money to see them, and then you sit in the back, and the sound sucks all of a sudden. Art Bell says, I always wondered how history would remember Hugh Hefner. It was not as nice as I thought. Perv who cared not much for the models, drugged women, Cosby and Polanski, etc. Yeah, no, poor Hugh Hefner. I mean, to me, Hugh Hefner is he's representative. Hugh Hefner and the movie director, Blake Edwards, is another good one. These guys who came in before the 60s, before the real sexual revolution hit, guys who started, they really date to the late 50s, and the early sexual revolution, led by guys, these kind of midwit, intellectually guys, who did things like Playboy, and Blake Edwards movies were always about sex. And they're always saucy and a little, irreverent, a little, push the envelope just a little bit on sex, right? Hefner, of course, brought pornography into the mainstream, but these guys, that generation of guys, not even the boomers, it's kind of it was kind of the World War II generation. The guys who came back swaggering from World War II thought, we're going to sexually liberate, and it's going to be a blast. It's going to be so much fun because we're going to have all the women we want. And what do we care, man, if everybody's having sex? And of course, it's all turned out horribly wrong. It's not that everybody's having sex. It's the much lamented dynamic that is out there now. It's a few guys banging a bunch of, an entire class of women that are become horrified. Not horrified. It's 20% of the guys banging 80% of the women, sort of thing. And it's not sexual equality. There's no such thing as sexual equality. Sexual freedom is the opposite of sexual equality. Sexual equality can only be achieved, equality of sexual experience, equality of sex, equal distribution of sex. Not that we should even be thinking about that, it should be all about, families. But people want sex, they think about it, that's inevitable. So you can't liberate sex without creating this brutal hierarchy of sex, of course. And we see how Hefner ended up, you know. He thought it was all going to be a blast. He was going to live in his pajamas in the grotto. And it ended up with him, you know, this gumming his fucking oatmeal, you know, this old guy being manipulated, being taken advantage of by these young bimbos. Art Bell asks, how will history remember Alex Jones? He or his staff noticed in so many reports. You know, right now I'm totally down on Alex Jones, and I'm glad you brought that up. Here's something that's happened. So this whole new Trump thing, it's, you know, what's happening with Trump right now, that he's won the presidency again somehow, and he's acting so forcefully and quickly that, you know, like we were talking about earlier, like certain rage farmers are kind of out of business, and other people are finding their niche in being just, you know, Trump cultists. I think this thing about there being a Trump cult is finally coming to fruition that the left has been talking about. And Alex Jones is one of those guys, you know, and there are other guys, Brett Weinstein, for instance, Walter Kern, for instance. These guys are just pro-Trump, and they're just going to shill for Trump no matter what. And of course, eventually they're going to be tested really hard. But yeah, Alex Jones is just right now. He might as well be on Trump's payroll. Rustin Rohrer says it might be worth talking about passport bros. Many people are leaving the West to find women in Thailand and the Philippines. You know, yeah. I mean, I think what needs to happen though is we need to make women honest again, and that would be the only way. You know, these guys who bring their Filipino brides to the West often end up screwed over, also, right? Women you bring into the West are quickly ruined by it. You know, you can't trust them, right? You're going to go get a Russian bride. You're going to go get a Thai bride. Bring her home. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe in a couple of years, she just starts playing you like, you know, I mean, Americanization happens quickly. And women are women is the problem. Women are the problem.
Yo, Supreme Being, you're a real one. Supreme Being, I love you.
This dude is one of the most nicest, smartest, generous people I have ever met. I am not lying. He is much taller than I thought he would be.
What the hell?
That's what they say. That's what they say. That was a direct quote. That was a direct quote, folks.
Protests in L.A., San Diego, and somewhere else in Cali.
Let's hear some music we made today.
So here are the protests. They're pushing back on Trump's deportations. You know, so yeah, the deportations could be another, you know, bait and switch project. You know, they're going to deport a bunch of Mexicans, you know, and get not even work through the tens of millions that we acquired during the Biden chaos, and at the same time crank up the H-1Bs and bring in the Indians, who are much worse for us than, like I said, than any Mexicans. Rustin Rohrer says, no, not in Thailand or the Philippines. I just got back from Thailand, Pattaya. Went to Soi 6, mostly prostitute, but the women are drastically different than the Western women. Well, I've been to the PI. Quaj says there are small protests, 1,000 a day max. Yeah, there's a whole group of people though, again, that are just um, they're just going to become shills for Trump, and they don't want you. You know, they want us to shut up when we come and we note, you know, that any negative aspects of anything Trump's doing, you know, or when we say you can't trust Trump, you know, they don't want to hear it. And that's a huge problem with Alex Jones. Yeah, but, you know, people made the mistake of, you know, I was all for letting him be rehabilitated, not, you know, censoring him and everything else. But I hear people saying, like Jimmy Dore says this, and Jimmy Dore's a typical, I love Jimmy Dore, but he's a mid. He's very mid in his understandings. He doesn't have a broad education at all. You know, he'll come out and say, it turns out Alex Jones is right about everything. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He was right about half of the things, maybe, but I mean, he's still wrong about a lot of stuff, and he's still just, you know, avoiding the big problems. He's not, you know, he doesn't want to talk about Israel. You know, he wants to talk about elitists. You know. Here's Kevin Dahlgren. Kevin Dahlgren is on the job.
Oh, he's running from the cops. Whoa!
This is Portland.
Hell.
Police chase.
Oh, cops right here. Oh, he's running from the cops.
Holy shit. Is that guy okay?
That's what they pulled out of the car. That's funny. See the mess down there on the ground? I don't know if that was already there or that's a result of the crash, because it's Portland.
Little keychain.
Wonder if that was a keychain from the person who stole the car or whoever the owner of the car is.
They said they got the key.
Wow, it really tore that Jeep up. He's lucky he didn't kill somebody. Yeah. See, this is why I give up, because Kevin Dahlgren and this girl Tara Fall, who he works with, they're out there on the streets every day filming insanity and just documenting what's going on in Portland. As far as I'm concerned, it's the Lord's work. I mean, it's a niche that's, I mean, they should be making money doing this. They should be known doing this. You know, they should be able to make a career out of this. And you look at their numbers on Twitter, wherever, and you realize that, you know, paying the rent doing this. You could go out there and do, I mean, you know, you have to be an altruist. You have to be, you know, you're willing to work for free, basically. Yeah, it's so creepy in some of those places in Portland.
They're just passing through. Wow. I imagine not many people actually walk through this pedestrian underpass.
No, and there's needles everywhere.
Yeah, there's always needles everywhere. Always. I have people standing on the side of the road in Portland, waiting for me to drive by in my car so they could cross the street, shooting up. I swear to God, I've seen this. The guy is standing on the corner, right? He's waiting for traffic to stop, and he's geezing right there, just, as he walks down the street. Art Bell says, oh, two of the women in the Black Hawk chopper. There were two women in that Black Hawk crash. I don't stories immediately go for the DEI angle because I think it's kind of foolhardy. And if you turn out to be wrong, DEI is always there, and there's no doubt in my mind that DEI is causing degradation in the quality of services that has to be resulting in a net increase in deaths in things like accidents, medical mishaps, all of it. Of course, it has to. It can't be that you are diluting merit as a criterion and not getting that. But you have to be careful, just to immediately jump on DEI as the reason for whatever latest mishap. It's like these people who are on one side or the other of the global warming debate, and every time there's a weird weather occurrence, they're like, yeah, see, I don't want anything to do with it.
Through this pedestrian underpass next to a busy road. See if we can get through here. It's always an adventure. It's squishy.
No, they've got the whole thing curtained off. Holy shit.
It's got a vibe.
So we got is that a couch? Bed, tables, lots of junk.
We're gonna walk up through here. Positive vibes only. This is
So how many people do you think actually use this pedestrian underpass?
2. Well, 3 including the guy who lives here.
Yeah.
I think maybe just us.
Doesn't feel necessarily that safe walking through here. The problem is this is a very busy road right here.
It is, yeah, you can get
Wow.
No, that's basically somebody's house. They've got a curtain at one end. I don't know, it's kind of reassuring to see that Portland hasn't changed.
First Amendment. So it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats.
You got to give Trump credit, man. He's creatively, he's doing things, like I said, individually you got to approve of them. Like he's giving press passes now to bloggers and, it's not like going to put old media up there and they don't even have the viewers really. They don't even really carry the weight they used to have. So he's opening up the idea of press passes, taking away press passes from the old sclerotic, shitty media, and widening it. That sounds great. So many things he's doing. You've got to give him credit as a politician, as a canny political operator. What he's doing, and he's doing things so fast that the opposition can't even keep up. Let's go butter in the DNC, shall we?
We have a gender non-binary candidate or officer. The non-binary individual is counted as neither male nor female, and the remaining 6 offices must be gender balanced. With the results of the previous 4 elections, our elected officers are currently 2 male and 2 female. In order to be gender balanced, we must elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. So again, this is what we have to do for this vice chair race. We have to elect 1 male, 1 female, and 1 person of any gender. To ensure our process accounts for male, female, and non-binary candidates, we conferred with our RBC co-chair, our LGBT caucus co-chair, and others to ensure that the process is inclusive and meets the gender balance requirements in our rules. To do this, our process will be slightly different than the one outlined to you earlier this week, but I hope you will see that in practice it is simple and transparent. The order of balloting is designed to ensure equal access to the ballot, regardless of gender identity. As we must elect a candidate of any gender as well as 1 male and 1 female vice chair, we will first ask members to elect a candidate of any gender on the first ballot. Any candidate, male, female, and non-binary, can be elected on that ballot. After a candidate is elected on the first ballot, we'll have 1 officer of the 3.
All right.
I have a show of hands in this round, so I'm going to, I have a show of hands. How many of you believe that racism and misogyny played a role in Vice President Harris's defeat? Okay. So that's good. You all passed. In this round, so I'm going.
You'll pass. That's so ridiculous.
With the opening statements, each candidate will have 30 seconds.
Is funny.
And we'll start with Dr. Quintessa Hathaway.
Quintessa.
Good evening, everyone. It is my desire to be the next DNC chair.
I can't bother to
And I
sit
just
up
want to
straight
give you all a
for it.
little bit of something that's been on my heart here over the last couple of days. You fight on, you fight on, you fight on, you fight on. When your government is doing you wrong, you fight on, oh, you fight on.
Oh, I love it. Got my vote.
Thank you, thank you, Dr. Hathaway.
Oh, somebody dared laugh.
And we'll begin.
And I would love your attention. Hey, I am speaking. and I would love your attention. There is a black woman at this podium, and I deserve your attention like the 11 people who went before me. Yes, I am speaking. Hey, I am speaking, and I would love your attention.
That's all they ever say, right? That didn't work for Paula. I think, sir, was her whole line.
A Chinese immigrant who survived communism. And under Mao, 40 million people were starving to death after he sold the communism to them. 20 million.
Yeah, I'm tired of China agitprop, really. We're not going to war with China. We're not going to do it. It would be stupid.
Tessa Hathaway.
All right, we saw Quintessa. The Quintessas of Quintessa.
Okay.
Party. But the other, but.
I just not quit. Can you here at home? Okay.
Peace out,
Party.
bitches.
But the other, but.
I just not quit. Can you okay, hello? Excuse me. Election cycle. You do not.
She's the bouncer.
These particular.
And Democrats are still taking money from the arsonists.
Would you have done anything differently? No, I'm sorry. Everyone. Hey, I am speaking, and I would love your attention. There is a black woman at this podium, and I deserve your attention.
Yeah, a black woman is speaking. Yeah, all right. I am speaking. Art Bell says, is that your type of look? Would Taylor Swift appeal to you, a bottle blonde with freckles who loads up on makeup? No, of course not. I mean, like this one, right? She's nice. No, that's definitely not, like, appealing. Too made up. No. I like a girl who's softer and more natural.
I mean, I ain't never seen so many people with missing limbs.
Yeah,
I
Portland.
mean, everywhere.
This is true. He's talking about Portland, and they're losing limbs to this this hardcore drug. It's not fentanyl, it's something else, and it's causing their fucking limbs to atrophy, and they end up getting feet and hands and shit cut off to save their lives.
But I mean,
I'd like to think that should have triggered the government to agree this is a crisis. If there's
people's limbs rotting off everywhere due to xylazine. Been cut into fentanyl and is a horse tranquilizer. Yeah, this is real. This is Portland now. And Portland, instead of shifting right, Portland has done is they've just elected their most radical city council ever. I mean, they have just the worst. And Washington's governor is the worst. His whole thing is just being anti-Trump and going after, supposed white supremacy. Yeah, they're making zero progress because there's no political will or way to solve the problem. Epidemic of flesh-eating trank. Yeah. Phil the Kill says Dennis misses the LA biker gang he joined. Yeah, I miss riding every day in sunny weather. That, yeah. I mean, it's been really cold. I don't know, it's been cold nationwide, but it's been cold here. We actually had a little snow today. First snow. It doesn't snow a lot in the Puget Sound. But we got a little snow today, and it's just been cold, and when it's not cold, it's just pouring down rain. It's just been a miserable winter, and we're barely into February. Art Bell says, JF's show has fallen in quality. He will say one hot thing per week. One very densey take was, blacks have been in the U.S. since 1614. They have not melting potted or adjusted to the U.S. Euro roots. Yeah, no. Virtually every group. There are only two groups I have issues with for very different reasons. You know, blacks are one of them. Really. I mean, I'm pretty much like everybody else. You know, I find them perfectly bearable and tolerable, except for, you know, blacks in a certain other group. You know, the small caps, who in person are, you know, and in person, even the blacks, you know, are nice people, but you can't get around, you know, the percentage of them that are awful. And you can't get around the effect of the other group, the effect of their power. It's, you know, it's not a question of do you like them or not. I just hate this language we use, do you like them? It's like the Ukrainian war. I mean, you know, they were talking about Ukraine when Trump was in one of the debates or something, and some news bimbo was challenging Trump about Ukraine. Do you want Ukraine to win? Do you even want Ukraine to win? She's saying, like, what is this fucking language? Like, who do you want to win? Right? This is the way we think in America. We're like children. Who are you rooting for? I mean, I just think it's crazy. And I think a group can be made up of individuals who are refined caliber individuals. But if they are oriented against you as a group, right? If their group strategy, and I believe very much in group strategies, will out, right? More than anything else, even if people in that group aren't aware that they are part of a group strategy. Group strategies are the dynamic that is driving history. And a group of people can be made up of people who are very industrious, intelligent, individually kind and tolerant, and they can be a fucking disaster for your group if they're oriented against you, right? I mean, I think the world of Europeans, but if you were somebody who was minding your own business, right, in North America, you're these hunter-gatherer Native American tribes, or you're the Aztecs, or you're anybody else, you know, the Europeans were bad news. We were bad news for them. Right? And it wasn't a question of, oh, they're good people, bad people. You know, am I making sense? All right, let's go play some music then. Just a little bit of the music. Play something in the theme. What is the theme? The theme is thrill kill cults. This is a break, Phil. I'll be back. I don't know, it's not right to play this music on Sunday. Is it? I know. Beach Boys YouTube channel. Okay, let's go there. Let's go wholesome. Let's get. I'm looking at some musical. I don't know. That's pretty damn cool, though. It's great. It's great. All right, we're gonna play something evil. It's awful. Just once. Just once.
For drugs. It's great. It's great. I live for drugs. It's great. It's great. I freaked out very, very badly.
I freaked out on acid.
I live for drugs. It's great. It's great. I'm the white rabbit. I can't afford it. I would never buy drugs. I live for drugs. It's great. I'm the white rabbit.
Forever loaded. I freak out on acid.
I'm the white rabbit.
I need to think now. Get rid of my stinking brain. I'm gonna have to do something wholesome after this just to get this out of my system. All right, enough from you, you psychos. Yeah. So, and here's J.D. Vance. I don't know.
Immigration problems, right? So definitionally, when you invite people in the country to come in saying they hate Jews, you can't expect them to stop hating Jews the minute they cross the threshold of American territory. So we're going to be right behind pretty bad immigration problems, right? So definitionally.
Yeah. So before you get too excited about Trump, he's kicking people out of the country for being critical of Israel. So that's not something I approve of. I don't know how you feel about it. But I mean, a lot of the people that are probably getting kicked out, I probably don't care to have them here anyway, because they're just part of the problem in other ways. But where does it stop? It's just going to stop with, Palestinian college students protesting the slaughter in Gaza? I don't think so. Felix Kill says, this was a weird, depraved band, but Confessions of a Knife was interesting and were considered the best by a wide margin. Confessions of a Knife and the first one, I See Good Spirits, I See Bad Spirits. Yeah, good stuff. They wanted to make a movie. My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult was going to be the title of a movie. And I saw Rob Zombie's first movie, 1,000 Zombies or something. 1,000 something. And I thought it was pretty good as far as, horror movies go. Exploitation flick, But I thought, this is the movie those guys were thinking about making right here. A rock and roll horror movie. Art Bell says there's a video on YouTube. Did Bowie do something with a 15-year-old? All these music acts did junk with age 17 types and now getting help. Oh yeah, Leonard Skinner wrote a song about it. What's your name, little girl? What's your name? Yeah, well, they used to get away with a lot of stuff. We were talking about Hefner before, and the early degenerates of the pre-sexual revolution, the enthusiastic guys who thought it was all going to be fun. The shit they were getting away with, you can only imagine. Roman Polanski, hooking up with a 15-year-old whose parents were involved in the whole thing. Jack Nicholson might have been involved in the whole thing. Yeah. They didn't consider it rape because the girl was willing, I guess, when they got her so wasted. And he sodomized her too. Phil the Kill says, I saw House of 1,000 Corpses, thank you. Super loved by youngsters back then. I won a triple date because even chicks wanted to see it. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good, actually. Art Bell says, when an actor cheats on his wife, women won't want to buy tickets to his film. Yeah, they don't want the leading man to be gay. They want to. I mean, is that still a thing? We still don't have out leading men, right? We still got closeted leading men in Hollywood, I suspect, because women want to think they have a shot with him. But I think we're going to have to shut this down, and maybe we're going to come back later today. I'm trying to get Portland Cam from Portland to come back. He wants to do a show on UAVs, UFOs. I find I'm not that interested in it, but maybe there's a show there, maybe not. So I told him, if you want to do that tonight at 5, I haven't heard back from him. Let's do it. I'm more interested in what's on the ground right now. For some reason, I just don't find it at all compelling that there might be like aliens out there. I guess I don't think there are aliens out there, you know, because I think the aliens would have shown themselves, right? It wouldn't be just them, you know. I think what we're seeing is man-made phenomena, and maybe, you know, a limited hangout in the reveal of man-made phenomena. You know, that's what I think we're witnessing with all these crazy so-called UAVs, UFOs. Yeah. So let's go out on a wholesome note. What would cleanse the palate of all the degeneracy? Just something good, right? Let's just groove with this. All right, I'll see you later, maybe. If you want to come on, hang out at 5.